Howdy, and welcome back to Sunday School of First Church Congregational of Methuen, Massachusetts, United Church of Christ. My name is Cowboy Joe, and I'm a friend of Pastor Bill, the Reverend William D. Ingraham, who serves his church as senior pastor. In fact, I'm sitting right now in his dining room to give you this introduction to Sunday school. Today, Pastor Bill is going to be talking about a story of Jesus and his followers when he went down and got him into a boat and went out onto a lake. I'll let him tell the rest of the story. Now remember, if you come back at the end of this here lesson, Cowboy Joe will sing you his theme song. It's a right pretty theme song. Maybe you've even learned it and you can sing along with me. All right. I'm going to hand it off to Pastor Bill. Here you go, Pastor Bill.
Hi. Welcome to Sunday School today. Thank you, Cowboy Joe, for introducing the lesson for today. We'll see you again at the close of the lesson. Well, you may notice, boys and girls, and adults and youth who are watching too, that I'm in a different place today. So here I am down by the Merrimack River. This may be a spot you recognize, but maybe not. This is the boat landing where River Road meets Lowell Street, or the Boulevard as it's called at that point. Right close to that intersection, near the Irish Cottage, if you know where that is a boat landing. It's a place where people can put their boats in the water, and I thought this would be a good place to tell our lesson for today. In case you're joining us for the first time on this Sunday school lesson, I am Bill Ingraham. I am the senior pastor of First Church Congregational of Methuen, Massachusetts, United Church of Christ. And it is my joy to get to share with you this story about Jesus today. Today's lesson comes from the Gospel of Mark. This story shows up in all the Gospels, but my favorite version of it is the one that comes in the Gospel of Mark. Jesus has been teaching to huge crowds of people, and he decides it's time to get away, and so he goes down to the shore with his disciples, and they climb into a boat and push out into the lake to go on the other side. This would be Lake Gennesaret, or the Sea of Galilee. So it's a really, really big lake. It's not a small lake, it's huge. So it wouldn't be so close to see the other side as you can see here. It's really a large lake. And they pushed out in their boat, and it says there were other boats with them, which makes me think a lot of the taggers on who were following Jesus had come along too. So that huge crowd of people, Jesus and his disciples got into the boat, others of his followers got into other boats, and they went out into the lake. And as they went out into the lake, a huge storm came up, and the wind got strong, and the waves batted against the side of the boat, and I'm sure were shaking the boat up and down, moving it over the waves. And so Jesus, remarkably, was asleep in the stern of the boat. That's the back. There's the bow, that's the front. The stern, that's the back. The port is the left side. Starboard is the right side. All those terms referring to a boat. So Jesus was in the stern of the boat on a cushion. And even though this storm was rocking the boat and batting it with waves, and the wind was howling and making all sorts of noise, Jesus was sound asleep. Can you imagine being sound asleep in a storm? Actually, sometimes I can. But let's save that and talk about that at the end of this story. So the boat is being beaten by the waves and tossed about by the wind, and the disciples are getting quite frightened. Remember, some of these disciples were fishermen, so they would have been very familiar with being in boats. Still, this storm was scaring them, maybe because they knew how bad a storm could be. And so they went back to the stern of the boat, and they woke Jesus up. And they said, "Do you not care that the winds and the waves are going to kill us and that we're going to perish? Do something to stop this storm." And so Jesus woke up. I imagine him rubbing his eyes and yawning. He stood up and he stands to the edge of the boat and he rebukes the wind, it says in the scripture, and he says to the waves, "Peace, be still." And the storm calms down immediately. And Jesus says to his disciples, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you worry?" And the disciples say of Jesus, "Who is this that even the winds and the waves obey him?" That's a story I just love. Talking about disciples being with Jesus, and when a storm came up that frightened them and made them feel like their lives were in danger, Jesus helped them to feel calm and to know that they were safe. So, you know what made me think about this story for this week's Sunday school lesson? On Wednesday night in Methuen, maybe you experienced this too. Do you remember the storm that came Wednesday night? It was about 5:45 or 6 o'clock. I think it was right at 6 o'clock. I was standing on the front porch of the parsonage waiting for a food delivery. I had a meeting that night with the church board, and so I had decided I was going to treat myself and have food delivered to the house. So I was standing on the front porch. As usual, the driver missed the parsonage because nobody can see the parsonage. It sits up high on a hill, and the number is small, and so drivers drive right past the parsonage, even though it's one of the most visible houses in the middle of town. Anyway, as I was standing there, little droplets of water started to fall on me, little bits of rain, not much, and I looked, and the sky was a little gray off over the church in downtown Methuen, but it was kind of clear off on the other side of City Hall. And since the person had missed, I started texting to the delivery person to make sure he knew how to go around the church to get back down to the parsonage. And I stepped into the house, and as I closed the door, a deluge started. You know what a deluge is? A huge downpour of rain. In German, they would call it a Wolkenbruch, meaning the clouds broke open and the water just poured out. A huge downpouring. And I walked through the house to the back door, which is where I expected to meet the driver, and I turned on the porch light. And the storm was rain coming hard and the wind blowing hard, and then I noticed the porch light wasn't on. I thought, what? Did I just turn off the light too? So I pushed the button and I realized there was no power. I looked around my kitchen, there were no lights on the stove or the microwave. The house was completely dark and still. I realized in that storm we had lost the power. Now, I wasn't afraid of that storm, but there have been big storms I've been in that were frightening to me. Have you been in big storms that were frightening to you? Maybe the wind blowing really strongly, or the rain coming down really hard. Maybe the threat of tornadoes or hurricanes or whatever in any place that you might have been. There are times that the weather can really frighten us because it's something we cannot control and we cannot change. The disciples, when they were caught in a storm and really frightened, went to Jesus and asked him to calm the storm for them. And Jesus did. Amazingly, he rebuked the wind and it died down. He said to the waves, "Peace, be still," and they were. And there sat the boat on the water in a still calmness when there had been such a big storm before that frightened them. And the disciples, though they had asked Jesus to help them, wondered who he was and by what power he had done it. He's the guy you just asked to do it. I always want to say that whenever I read this story. What do you mean? Who is this that even the winds and the waves obey him? He's the one you ask to. He's the Holy One from God. He's the one you have faith in, the one you follow. Couldn't you have trusted Jesus to see you through? So, I don't think it's a good idea to plan on praying to Jesus and the storms go away. But I do think when you're in a storm, you can pray to Jesus for comfort. And I don't think it's a good idea to think that at any moment by magic we can get out of a troubling situation, because we just can't. But we can pray to God to hold us in safety and remember the love of God that Jesus had made known to us, that promises us that no matter what comes our way, no matter how bad the storm, how horrible the situation, how hard the pressing moment that we're facing is, God's love holds us and will never let us go. And so God can give us strength, and God can give us courage, and God can help us to find the way through. And sometimes in the middle of all the storm and the waves that are hitting up against the boat and the winds that are tossing our boat, we can pray, and in Christ's name, God gives us a calmness in our hearts and in our minds. And who knows, maybe in the physical world around us too. Well, that's the Sunday school lesson for today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next Sunday on Sunday School at First Church Congregational.
Thank you, Pastor Bill. That was right interesting and downright educational. To help me to understand that we can seek out Jesus and try to understand him and try to know him to help calm us down when the storms of life are raging. I appreciate that a whole lot. That's real encouraging for me, and I suspect it is for all the folks who are watching this Sunday school today. Well, boys and girls, now's the time for my theme song. You know the reason Cowboy Joe has a theme song, not just because it's fun to have a theme song, but one of the reasons is that I can sing this song to the cattle, and it'll calm them down and help them be real still and tranquil like when the storms of life are raging. It really fits today's Sunday school. So here we go. Here's my theme song. He likes to sing raggedy music to his cattle while he swings back and forward in the saddle on a horse, a pretty good horse, a syncopated gator, and he shuffles to the meter of the roar of his repeater, how they run when the hero Joe a comin', and the western folks all know. What do they know? He's a highfalutin, rootin' tootin' son of a gun from Arizona, ragtime cowboy. Talk about your cowboy, ragtime cowboy Joe. There you go, boys and girls. I hope you've learned your lesson. And next week, you can tune in right here at 11 a.m. on Sunday to the Facebook or the YouTube and get Sunday School from First Church Congregational. Until then, this is Cowboy Joe saying, bye. Y'all be good. So long. Arrivederci. Adios. Get along. Bye.